In your book, Three Worlds, which really is fascinating, because at first I thought I was reading an autobiography and a personal history. And then as I continued, I realized I was reading a social history. In this book, you uncover evidence that suggests that the Israeli Mossad used certain methods to motivate Jews to leave Iraq. What was the evidence that you uncovered, and how did they motivate Jews to leave Iraq between 1948 and the 1950s?
Big picture first. In 1950, there were 135,000 Jews in Iraq. By the end of 1952, there were only about 10,000 Jews left in Iraq. The whole community had been wiped out.
In 2 years?
Yes, in 2 years. And 125,000 Jews ended up in Israel. In March 1950, the Iraqi government passed a law which said, the Iraqi parliament passed a law which said, any Jew who wants to leave the country is free to do so. They have a year to register to leave on a one-way visa. And not many Jews registered to leave. And in the next year, 5 bombs exploded in Jewish premises in Baghdad, and that created a panic and that helped to precipitate the exodus to Israel. And there were always rumors that the Mossad was involved in the bombs. I was always fascinated by this question since I was a boy. And now, when researching this book, I found 2 sources of evidence that point to Mossad connection. One is that I interviewed a very elderly friend of my mother's in Ramat Gan, Yaakov Karkukli, who was in the Zionist underground in Baghdad. And he told me about their actions, what they did, how they organized illegal immigration, and then after the law I just mentioned, legal immigration to Israel, how they forged documents, how they paid bribes. But most importantly, he told me that one of his colleagues, Yosef Basri, a 28-year-old lawyer and an ardent Zionist, he was a member of the underground, and he was responsible for 3 out of the 5 bombs. And in my research, I established that one bomb was lobbed, one hand grenade was lobbed by a young activist in the Istiklal Party, which wanted to expel the Jews from Iraq and confiscate the properties. And another hand grenade was lobbed into the Mas'ud Hashem Tov synagogue, and there 4 people were killed. And he was a criminal who had a grudge against the Jews, and it had nothing to do with the Mossad. But 3 other bombs, the Zionist activists, specifically Yosef Basri, were responsible for them. And the controller of Basri was an Israeli intelligence officer called Max Binet. He gave him the orders, he gave him the TNT. Basri was caught, tried, a proper trial, not a show trial, and convicted and hanged. And so that's one source of evidence, oral evidence, which is, we all know, is not totally reliable. The other source of evidence is a Baghdad police report, one page from the investigation of Basri and his colleagues, which names names and says specifically what Basri said in the interrogation. And so I now have written evidence as well as oral evidence that Israeli intelligence officers were involved in the planting of bombs in Baghdad on Jewish sides. Now, my Zionist critics said that even if I was right, even if all this is true, the main reason for the exodus was not the bombs, it was persecution by the government. And I concede that. It's not part of my argument that the bombs were the main reason for the liquidation of this community. But my answer to my Zionist critics is, even if I knew for certain that not a single Iraqi Jew left Iraq to go to Israel because of the bombs, I would still think this is a real indictment of the state of Israel, because Israel was created to provide a safe haven for Jews, not to be harassing and threatening Jews in other countries.